Listen, out of all the movies we caught at Sundance, this was the one that had us up until 5 a.m. Let us explain.
So what we do on Let Us Explain is dive deep on something that we can't stop thinking about for other people who can't stop thinking about that thing too. That means we'll be talking about anything and everything, including sometimes spoilers. But before we jump into the spoiler zone, we wanted to talk more generally about greener grass. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, he doesn't have a dog, but he knows that's a dog. It's Arturo Zurita.
Zach, I'm excited to be here to finally talk about a movie that we stayed up till 5 o'clock in the morning ranting. That conversation went from ranting, nah, y'all are mistaken, this is just an Adam Sandler type movie. Nah, it's David Lynch mixed with Wes Anderson mixed with this, mixed with that. 5 o'clock in the morning comes around, we had a screening that's about to start in 3 hours, and we go to bed, all going, is this the 5th best movie of all time? Like, I love how we gave it a score. We knew where it was ranked of all time. This movie, again, here on Intercut, we don't care about what's the best of the best. I mean, we do care about what's the best of the best. We don't care about numbers. What we care about is those movies we can't stop thinking about. Like Zach always says at the beginning, we cannot stop thinking about this movie. Right off the bat, know that there is a Vimeo short of this. It's available on VOD, but in case you're like, I don't know if I want to spend the $4.99, $5.99 on Vimeo, you can catch the short film Greener Grass for free, about 12 minutes long. If you're like me, go watch that, and if in the first 10 seconds that makes you laugh, man, I purchased my Sundance tickets right then and there. Purchase the movie. After this conversation, if that's what you need, I think we'll convince you. I think it'll be worth it because this is... Take it away, Zach. Take it away. I know you got a lot to say.
I've watched Greener Grass 3 times since it came out on VOD, maybe a week or 2 ago.
Yeah. You invited me to a party. I'm like, homie, you're in New York. I'm in Chicago. I can't make it.
I've been really, really eager to revisit this movie since we saw it at Sundance because that was way back in January, and it's such an interesting movie. I think there is that surface level to the movie, but there's so much more to it.
Yes,
so I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Greener Grass is the bizarre, hilarious, and unsettling feature film debut of Jocelyn DeBoer and Don Luby, who also co-star. A subversive depiction of a suburban community, Greener Grass is both a silly collection of comedic sketches and a deeply thoughtful examination of conformity, as well as the idea of perfect mothers and perfect families. Some might find the movie's style to be too stupid. Others will see the film as a mind-blowing social satire. Art, how did you feel about Greener Grass?
I've been a broken record with this. I keep saying that this thing right here is a suburban soccer mom tale from the perspective of an alien coming down and literally going, yo, if you are not from the suburbs, you have no idea how weird you look to people who are not from the suburbs. We're going to get into stuff that's spoilers, stuff that's just up to interpretation. You and I have been having great discussions, again, going back to our Sundance one. But I see it a lot like the YouTube video. What's the title? Because I feel like I mispronounce what the actual title of the video is, but
yeah, it's like English for how English sounds to non-English speakers.
Very intriguing video because it sounds like English, but you have no idea what they're saying, and it's like, damn, that's what English must sound. And it's like a surreal experience for you to see what the language that you're proficient in sounds to other people. Well, man,
right? It's that whole idea of performing something but not actually inhabiting it. This is a movie in which all the characters are performing this idea of a perfect suburban community with wonderful, nice families. Everybody's so polite and kind to one another, but that's not what they actually are.
Yeah.
And it's a really smart look at the ways in which things become normal, because normalcy isn't the same to everybody. Normal is what's normal to you and the people around you. Greener Grass is very interested in examining that idea of a bubble and what it does to these people in this hyper suburbia. I've compared this movie both to the films of John Waters and to Yorgos Lanthimos, in that John Waters often does these suburban social satires. He makes fun of the ways in which polite society has constructed itself, but there's also a deadpan to this movie that reminds me of Yorgos Lanthimos, because Yorgos' films, stuff like The Lobster, stuff like Dogtooth, basically what he does is he has his characters, or the actors rather, strip all the emotion out of their words, and it highlights the absurdity of some everyday interactions, the ways we communicate to each other. And I think this movie does a lot of that too.
It's a lot of things that people think is like normal, but you don't realize that from an outside perspective, if you were to describe that to somebody else, it would look as ridiculous as it does in this movie. From aspects of like a mother willing to give away her child to somebody else, that looks ridiculous. Imagine it, like I said, an alien comes down and was to observe suburbanites for a week or however long this movie takes place. This is what they would go back and say. They'd be like, yo, they just give their kids away. What do you mean? In the real world, it's like that. Some people do not look over their kids, and it's almost like somebody else is parenting them. Well, from an alien's perspective, it's like, yo, they just, I don't know, they treat their kid like it's a sports ball. They're just competing with each other. It's the weirdest community, and it's not until you leave that bubble, like you said, that you start realizing, oh yeah, everyone just conforms. Again, it's in the title, greener grass. A lot of people have mentioned this as like a David Lynch version of Stepford Wives. An evil Wes Anderson film. I think it's a masterpiece. I know you and I both love it. We have so many interpretations when it comes to this. Or it could just be a funny comedy. You can see this as just being something ridiculous. Like I said, go watch the short if you can. But, yo, we have some interpretations to talk about with this thing.
Right. There's that surface level where things are silly and the ways they interact are just meant to be funny. Like they all sit around and eat sandwiches together at some point, and everybody takes a bite of the sandwich and immediately kind of like throws it back up because it's disgusting. And that might just be a fun comedic bit, but it also could be a commentary on the politeness of this community. The way that they're too nice to say like, oh, I don't like this, that they will take a bite of it and go along and keep the polite conversation going. So the ways in which it both works on that surface level and works if you psychoanalyze it is the thing that's really, really fun about Greener Grass.
100%. One of the ones that we had talked about a lot before is the perspective with the kids. Let's go, because the pitch of the movie is soccer moms Jill and Lisa compete for approval and acceptance in a bizarre suburbia, right? And we had some interpretations when it came to the soccer ball and when it came to a dog. Kick it off.
Right. So there's a moment that happens in the movie. Are we going to dive into spoilers, or are we keeping?
Or should we wait a bit? What else do we have to say before we get into the spoilers? I guess to pitch to people this movie.
I mean, look, we are both big fans of this movie. It's very bizarre. I'd compare it in tone to some of the stuff that you get on Adult Swim, the Cartoon Network late night block, because it's that irreverent, alternate style of comedy. Some of it's off-putting, some of it's just uncomfortable. There's this weird tone that the movie has where it constantly feels like it might divert into horror, but it never quite goes there. And I think it's really, really interesting and well done, but it's certainly something that's going to make some people feel uncomfortable. And I know some people won't respond to its rhythms or just be kind of mystified at what it could all mean. We both found it fascinating, though.
Oh, we loved it. Yeah, we 100% loved it. I think that if you're going in there for the humor, you'll again watch the short. I feel like I keep saying that, but if that's your type of comedy, I think the entire running time, even though not all of the jokes are going to hit for you, they have something within there every single time. And I think that it's very rare that you see a short become a feature and that they add to it. I think they expand on the original short tenfold. Totally. Some aspects that we'll get into as well. But yeah, like you said, there is enough in there to dissect. And I think it's already made it a cult classic. I know it had a very small rollout, not a really big push of a release. I know it played at like the music box for us, but it's available on VOD. And I think this is one that in a couple of years is definitely going to be on a lot of people's like cult classics list. And hopefully it's one that gets like midnight runs. Yeah.
I hope this movie's reputation grows over time because it is such an interesting film. And because it's on VOD, it's going to be accessible for a lot of people. You can stop this review and go watch it right now if you want to. I do wish it was in more theaters, though, because I love to see that in a group of people, in a room full of people laughing and reacting, because it is such a visceral movie. I think you really feel a lot of the things that happen in it, from its more uncomfortable bits to its funnier stuff. I will mention, because you mentioned the short film, there's also another short film that Dawn and Jocelyn did together called The Arrival, which we like a lot. And I've been showing to people as a means of sort of giving them a taste of what they're going to get into before they watch Greener Grass. That way, Greener Grass is still kind of completely fresh, and you don't get anything spoiled for you, but you get an idea for their style, because there's a thematic through line through all of their stuff. The way that they look at the roles that mothers and women play in society, and just the idea of a family, and how the way we prop up certain ideas as ideal.
There's a movie that was at TIFF called Beneath the Blue Suburban Skies. That is this movie.
Right.
Just done from a completely different perspective and genre. So like you brought with The Arrival, that's a movie of a boy figuring out that he's about to have a sibling, and he doesn't like that. But from the kid's perspective, that doesn't seem like Toy Story 2. It seems like an actual omen is about to come over, and this parasite's going to take over. Then when you flip it from the perspective of the mother, who doesn't see the kid's perspective, but now feels replaced when another mother may be coming into the picture, they do a great job, like you said. I compared it a lot to the shorts of Ari Aster, another person who I would say, show him those shorts before you hit him with Hereditary and Midsommar, you know? It's like, he comes from that perspective of, I think he's a comedian, but he does horror movies instead, and he hides the comedy in there. They're doing these straight up comedies that honestly on a level is a horror movie. There's some scary stuff. You mentioned the conformity of it, of not realizing that you are literally a part of this machine, and you cannot go out of bounds, because this entire collective is really creepy at times. It could have easily been a David Lynch type of horror film.
Yeah, it feels like
out
2 or 3 steps removed from Stepford Wives.
So again, highly recommend checking out the shorts. Even the Ari Aster shorts. Be careful with his though. But be careful with his. I recommend Munchausen from him, as well as Arrival from them. They do a great way of approaching these stories from a different perspective.
Okay, so we're going to open this thing up to Greener Grass spoilers.
Yes.
If you can't handle the truth, or you haven't seen this movie, now is your chance to go and watch a spoiler-free edition of the Intercut podcast. For those of you sticking with us, I want to get into some analysis of the different parts of this movie, because something that I love about Greener Grass, which I've been mentioning, is how it works on that surface level and on that deeper level. So, for example, Lisa, at one point in the movie, puts a soccer ball under her dress, and everyone believes she's pregnant. And that's a version of a dumb joke that we all did when we were like 7 years old, right? You put the ball, and it's like, oh, look at my belly.
Boys do it, girls do it, yeah.
Yeah, but she carries around Twilson, her soccer ball baby, as they call it, like a normal child for the rest of the movie. They even pose for it in a family portrait, which you can see in the trailer, which, by the way, I don't recommend watching the trailer. It's got some spoilers in it. Because Twilson, the soccer ball, it's not just a prop for the movie, it's a prop in her life. It's a prop to make her look like a perfect mom who's raising 3 kids, and she's so happy in this portrait with bouncing Twilson on her lap. You know, it's not just a prop for her. It's not just a prop for us. It's a prop for this world.
Yeah, I agree. I want to get into the Twilson stuff, because if you remember that the volleyball is actually credited in the credits as T. Hanks, the same volleyball.
Tom Hanks' baby.
From Castaway. It's supposed to be like, if he had an IMDb page, these were the 2 movies he was in. I love that perspective of it. I saw that, again, going off of the treating it like a prop, but from the perspective of Friday Night Lights, a show you and I both love, in where, you know, it's usually dads who live vicariously through their kid when it comes to sports. I couldn't be the quarterback, so you will be. Well, here, you know, what's the description? Soccer moms Joe and Lisa compete for approval and acceptance. Well, what's one of the things that you need to be in order to be a soccer mom? You need a soccer kid. Literally treats the kid like it's just a soccer ball. That's her prop. It's the best possible, not the best possible, but that's how she literally treats her child in order to be able to fit in. And something else that we see with another mom, where her kid is not the best example when it comes to baseball or soccer, and it isn't until something happens, which I know was something you found hilarious.
Yes.
With
so
that kid.
The other main mom in the movie, Jill, has a son, Julian. Julian was, by the way, in The Haunting of Hill House. That's just a fun little
also named Julian. The actor's name is Julian as well, yeah.
So Julian is kind of like a little bit meek, a little bit weak as a child. You know, he gets knocked over easily in soccer. He wets himself. He's not quite the perfect image of a child that a mother might want. And she spends a lot of the beginning of the movie trying to get him to be better or do things better.
Yeah,
the father
the way she
also
wants.
is trying to play sports with him, and he's bad at sports, and he gets mad. He says, why are we even paying for baseball?
Yeah.
And then
And
Julian
then-
turns into a dog.
Dog enrolled
That's
in school
going to
and
be a very
everything.
weird sentence to anybody who might not have seen this movie yet. But yeah, and the thing is that as a dog, Julian's able to do a lot of the things his parents
Baseball.
want. He is a great, he's like got this ideal face. Nick, the father, is able to play ball with him until he gets tired. He's
Yep.
finally good at chasing the ball down. He turns into a version of what they want, because what they do, in many ways, what they want is not a child, but just a dog they can order around. There's literally a
Yes.
scene before Julian changes into a dog where Jill takes him into the bathroom and like commands him to pee, says, "You have to go to the bathroom. I know you have to go to the
Yeah.
bathroom."
Sit
the way
like a
that you
dog.
take a dog outside to get them to pee.
They can't say some of this stuff ain't on purpose,
It's
I
too
agree
smart
100%.
to be stupid.
And again, one of the earlier ones that we said, one of the stuff that happens in the beginning and can also be found in the short is when she's like, "Wow, I really like your baby," and she goes, "Do you want it?"
Wow.
How many I grew up with a lot of kids whose like their parents weren't parenting them; they were getting their parenting from somebody else. In a sense, that's how I took that perspective. Right? It's almost like you're allowing somebody else to parent your child, and you're not doing anything about it. And yeah, they change their kids to be what they want them to be it the soccer ball, be it the dog, a pet that they can command around. The
The other thing
thought it
that's
was a
really
great
funny
perspective.
with the giving away of the child is the way in which people get mad at Jill for it, but not because she gave away the child, but one woman gets mad because you didn't ask me, and her husband gets mad because like, could you just consult me first?
Yeah.
It's that thing. It's they just want to be polite. They don't want to seem mean. They don't want to seem like dickish, but.
The intersection scene when everybody that was in the trailer that I was playing before we had hopped on, everyone's
Yes.
at the intersection and nobody. I hate doing the first because I will always go first. I'd be like,
Yeah,
"Alright,
4 cars come to the stop,
will-
and it's like, well, who's gonna go first? And
Nah, I'm blowing
because
the stop
everybody
sign.
everybody is trying so hard to be nice, no one
nice.
goes.
and no one goes." And there's a certain perspective again where it's like, oh, that could be a funny bit because it's like, we've all been in that scenario. But then take it one step further and in a character, and I want to say it's Jill's, who says, no, you go first. No, you. I'm never first. Where it starts
Yes.
adding to that perspective of the conformity that they're all going through and always having to have like dinner at a certain time or compete with somebody else. Again, they're trying so hard to be these soccer moms and to be the best version of a soccer mom that one of them ends up trying to escape and realizes it's almost like a Truman Show type thing. This bubble that they're living in, and they don't realize that it's so separated from everything else. Once one of them, we're in spoilers, right?
Yeah, we are firmly
Okay.
in the spoiler zone. So there is a moment later in the movie where Jill basically is forced out of this suburban community she's in and goes out on the road. And, that we're in this weird community where everybody drives golf carts. And then she almost runs into a truck. That's like your
Yes.
first sign that she's outside of that bubble.
Yeah.
And then she pulls up to this home and speaks to this woman who
Completely different. No
is
braces, no nothing. Which
doesn't
again,
have
all
braces,
of the adults,
doesn't have that kind of like soft, kind affect to her voice when she's speaking, and also just like doesn't have time for Jill's shit.
Yes.
Because it's really interesting because it really cements that idea that she's living in a bubble. It's not that everybody in this world acts like her. It's everybody in her community acts like her because suburbia sort of imposes this kind of conformity on people.
And a lot of people can watch this movie and be like, "Oh, that's stupid." And you don't realize unless you leave your own bubble that you don't know you're in a bubble till someone tells you or you leave the bubble. That's the scariest part about it. And nobody second questions anything. I mean, there's sequences that you had said, not just with the intersection scene or even with like giving away a child, but stuff like the lattes. Does my latte taste different? Yeah, so does mine. None of y'all even bother to think that you have each other's lattes? There's a joke that comes from Nate Brigette's. He's got an incredible Netflix special where he says, "I will go to a Starbucks, and if you get my order wrong, I will not even complain with you. I will just go to another Starbucks." And that's what they do here. It isn't until she leaves those confines that she realizes that everything's different. I want to, which one, you can take so much from that. I'm sure we know many people, and I'm sure we'll never say that it's us who is in a bubble, but just that perspective is so interesting. I want to get a little behind the scenes when you were mentioning the golf carts, because they have a hilarious story that they mentioned in the Q&A that they were filming in Georgia.
Yeah.
And they had a damn emporium of golf carts. They had like some 1,000
They're
golf
in like
carts.
the world capital of golf carts.
Like, who
this
even
town that
knows
has a bunch
that
of
stuff,
golf cart
right?
roads.
Yeah.
And,
Imagine pulling up to Atlanta, and that's like one of the things you take from the visitor center. It's like, who would have known? And they like struck a deal or something to be able to use all those golf carts. They said, would you be able to use these? He said, trust us, we will find a way. In the short, they had regular cars, but I think the perspective, the aesthetic of just having everyone use golf carts, and then the way it plays into the story as a means of being able to break out of that suburbia when you see a truck is so effective. But also it's just so comedic. I think it works beautifully having all the adults wear braces. You had mentioned that in one of the Q&As, they said the purpose for that was...
Yeah, they mentioned that everybody in the movie wanted to look young, and it's this fetishization of like looking young and looking beautiful and being presentable and perfect, and the ideal image of a suburban family.
Yeah.
Which plays into that idea of the little Helen character.
Little Helen, explain. Because you've seen it 3 times, more than I have recently.
Yeah, so Little Helen is this stalker character who kind of appears throughout the movie.
Lizzie McGuire coach. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that one because...
The first time we see Dot Marie Jones, the woman who plays Little Helen, is she's substitute teaching a yoga class. And unlike everybody else in the neighborhood who is like perfectly coiffed and has on all their makeup and has their hair done, she shows up with very wet hair. She shows up kind of looking unkempt, and her voice cracks because she's not sure what to say. She feels different than the rest of the people in this community.
Yes.
Then, and again, we're so far into spoilers, she breaks into Jill's house when Jill is not there. So Jill arrives home to see Helen there, wearing her clothes, cooking her food, saying lines that she's been saying throughout the movie. And if I can like get a little pretentious in this moment here, I think the idea of it is like, just as the clothes don't fit on Little Helen doesn't fit into this world's idea of femininity, right? Like she's trying to cook food the way that a mother does. She's saying all the things that Jill did, but she's not using it right. She says, "I'm trying to get dinner on the table," and Jill says, "But eggs are for breakfast," because she doesn't know. She's trying to do what is expected of women, but she's failing at it, and I think that's the purpose of that Little Helen character, is to I don't want to necessarily sound like crude or mean, but they cast Dot Marie Jones for a reason, not necessarily an actress who is thought of as more elegant or whatever. And they also they made her out to be kind of odd looking.
The
and
way
not
they
pretty.
film her. It's from a voyeuristic standpoint for a lot of the beginning of the movie, where she's just heavy breathing, trying to see them. They treat her like a villain because she's not this model of what the woman is supposed to be in this little town.
Her struggle to fit into or present as this idea of what we want women to present as, I think pushes Little Helen to this point where she invades these women's homes and tries to basically take over their lives. I think it seems like this crazy weird moment, but to me it was one of the deeper ideas in the movie.
That's interesting. Yeah, I remember just sitting here going like, "Yo, what is the coach from Lizzie McGuire?" Because that's usually what she gets cast in as coaches. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think Glee too, right?
Yeah, man, there's so many other things I can see when I go back to this. I want to go back to the kid part. We were talking about how a mom, in order to be the best soccer mom, will literally turn her kid into a soccer in her mind. The dog, however you want to see it, right? There was another perspective when it comes to the parenting side of things that I want to talk about. One of your favorite bits, which was the commercials. In particular, it wasn't even an ad. It was a show. One of the shows that one of the kid has called Kids with Knives, where the entire point of the show is just kids with knives, showing the influence of what media...
This might be my favorite joke in the whole movie, in that at one point, Bob, one of the kids, is sitting and watching a show, Kids with Knives. Literally, it's just kids holding knives and looking at the camera. And up until that point, he's like a sweet kid. He's a nice child. But then...
The media man.
immediately after he watches just like a minute of this program, he turns into this like demonic asshole kid, is this misbehaving mean child. And it, to me, it's a commentary on the way that media corrupts kids, or how we blame violent video games for turning kids bad. It's this idea that, just a little bit of exposure to this violence and he's
then
suddenly
boom, he's addicted.
Not the same person.
Kids with knives made him do it. Like, that's all he needed, and all of a sudden he's obsessed with literal sharp objects. What are some other sequences, be it comedic bits, that stood out to you?
Well, so one thing that I've been trying to parse over, and I don't know if I have necessarily the right interpretation of it, is the haircut scene. There's a really crazy image. For me, it's one of the most things that sticks with you the most, when Jill goes to get a haircut, and when the barber, what's the woman, salonist? When the hairdresser goes and cuts her hair,
yes,
she bleeds from the hair.
See, I should have said this earlier on. When I watch some movies, there's a faith you want to have in the filmmakers, right? That's the only thing that can really get you invested in this world, is you see something and you're like, I don't know what that means, but you want to know that at least one person knows what it means. In this case, two people knows what it means. The filmmakers. I go into movies like Enemy. I can't decide for all of it, but when I hear that he had people sign, our boy Denny had people sign contracts to not spoil what the spiders are, I know he knows what it is, and it makes me love that movie because I have my interpretation of it. I don't get it, but I know they do. At least I want to say they
Absolutely.
do. And that makes me want to... I feel rewarded when you... And I'm sure that's why you've seen it 3 times. When you continue to watch this, because you know that they got one. They have something on it.
Yeah.
And these women are hilarious.
Yeah, the little Helen
interpretation.
thing was... Sorry?
I want to hear your interpretation of that, because then I want to get into our favorite story of these 2 ladies in real life.
Right. So yeah, the little Helen thing was something for me that I didn't quite get on my first watch through, but in revisiting the movie, I've been able to kind of come up with that idea, and I think that holds true to what the movie is about. As for the haircut, like, I don't know if I'm necessarily satisfied with my opinion on it. I think it's just this idea of the value we put into our looks, and how for a lot of people it's like, oh, am I going to cut my hair? Like, should I do that? It's such a big decision.
Beauty is pain.
Like the idea that
Beauty
to
is
change
pain.
your look is so drastic. It's almost like slicing into your skin, and it's so, her hair is such a part of her identity that cutting it causes her to bleed. But I'm sure there's more interesting ideas out there. Another thing was the graves that the movie ends on. How
you haven't told me about this. Yeah.
So she leaves the community and she comes back to the soccer game. This is where the movie ends, and it ends on this note where Jill realizes that the kids are all playing on graves that's on the soccer field. This is something that they refused to give an answer to at the Sundance Q&A. Somebody asked them. Obviously they didn't want to spoil the ending of their movie at their like 3rd screening or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have the right opinion, but to me, it's the idea of you can't see what's right in front of you until you leave your bubble. You don't really know what something for the truth of it until you have something to compare it to, right? And only Jill finds it weird that they've been playing on graves this whole time, because she's now had a chance to leave and come back.
Interesting. Okay, so it's more of the character's perspective of being able to see how her viewpoint has changed. Okay. Mm-hmm. I can buy that.
Why is it graves and not like trash cans? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
is there going to be a DVD release to this? I haven't been able to sit down to see all of their other interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to hear behind the scenes, a making of. Like, it's a very beautiful. Like, I know we've been talking about the story and stuff, but I'd like to. We said the golf cart story, the production design, the costume design, the way that it's shot. It's
all the couples are wearing like
nice
matching
aesthetic.
outfits.
Yeah.
It's really, really funny.
All
and
the
really
adults
well
with the braces and stuff, and I was like, I'm very.
There's also that
see.
interesting thing about how. I think it's Lisa starts out wearing blue and ends up wearing pink. She ends up wearing the same outfit that Jill was wearing in the beginning of the movie. She's
You
living
know,
in Jill's house. She
you
has Jill's
know,
baby. She's slowly assuming
you
control
know,
of Jill's life.
What is it with these movies this year about just some people taking over some other people's houses that we like, other people's lives that we're falling in love with, dude?
I'd be
I wanna
very
get into-
curious to hear from anybody who's had a chance
Yes.
to watch the movie, what their
Your
interpretations are of
interpretations.
some of these things and others.
Easily.
So leave it in the comments below,
If you're
or
a
send
soccer
us an
mom,
email.
if you're a soccer mom and you watch Intercut, please let us know
Yeah.
your perspective of
Please.
this grand opus for you. But I want to get a little story, and if you've listened to Intercut, you already know the story. But in case this is the first time you're, because this is our official Greener Grass video, the librarian story. If you want to bounce back and forth with it, when we had seen it, and we had seen it at the same screening at Sundance, I want to say, so we knew
Yes.
what they looked like. I mean, they have a very specific profile. Jocelyn is the brunette. Dawn is the blonde, if I'm not mistaken, correct? And she's way taller. They have a very specific look, and they were wearing
No,
the
sorry.
clothes that we saw.
Dawn is the blonde.
Okay, and we saw what they were wearing and everything. It was like, oh, cool, that's done. We loved the movie, stayed for the Q&A, all that stuff. Our two boys, Chase and Ryan, end up going to another screening, and they see the blonde there, and Dawn, sorry. And Dawn's there, and she's there with her producer, and they're waiting for another screening, and they go up to her, and they go, yo, I just want to let you know, we just caught your movie, and it was great. And she goes, what movie? I'm just here to watch movies. They're like, no, your movie, Greener Grass. She's like, Greener, should I check that one out? Is it good? She searches herself up on the phone, Dawn whatever, and goes, wow, I guess I really do look like her. And they go, oh, I apologize. They fell for it. They go, oh, I'm so sorry.
And she's like, what? Oh, no, I'm just a librarian.
I'm just a librarian here. But if you say that movie's good, I'll add it to my radar. They buy it. They watch the movie. It isn't until later on that they end up going to another Q&A, another kind of like group thing. Not only is she there again,
producers Q&A.
yeah.
Thing.
Not only is she there again, but so is her producer partner, who's hosting one of the panels. Granted,
they're rascally.
they are so good at keeping up. Again, they fell for it. This is the same night where we literally just saw the movie with them, so we know what she looks like because we spent 90 minutes staring at her on a big screen. But she was still wearing the same thing from the Q&A she had just spoken to, and was able to convince her friends, nah, that's not me. I'm a librarian here. They have taken their comedy to a whole nother level. They, to this day, refuse to say that was even them, because when they met up with them later, they're like, nah, we never did that. Because I think our Florida
Fernando
boys
asked them, right?
asked them, and they said, no, I don't know what that is. Also, I'm a librarian. They're like, no,
Yeah,
I'm
we
at
gotta
your
get to the
Q&A
bottom
right
of
now.
this.
You're not going to buy me. Can you imagine going up to her after the Q&A, and she still doesn't?
Yeah.
They still don't take the credit
We need to get Dawn on the podcast to put a
I'm very
end to
curious.
this.
Yeah, I'm very curious to hear just more of their perspective of the making of the movie, how they took it
Yeah.
from the short, what they expanded on. I'm always curious to hear what were things that weren't able to make it to the short, but were able to go into the feature, or stuff that they wanted to add to it. One of my favorites of the year, one of my favorites of all time to just talk about. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to it, but I really hope more people catch
there's
it.
so much that's interesting about this movie. I'm sure we're forgetting some details, but
Yeah.
I'd be happy to discuss them with anybody. So if you've got a chance to see the movie, please reach out to us, intercutpod@gmail.com, or at intercutpod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Would love to hear your theories. You've heard a lot of mine. You've heard Art's. It's a really cool movie. It's definitely one of the movies that I've thought the most about this year, and the movie I've seen the most this year. So really excited to have more people catch up with Greener Grass.
I agree. I concur.
Yeah. So that's all for this edition of Let Us Explain on Intercut. You can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd @ZShevich, or check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/multiplexshow. Art, where can people catch more from you?
You can find me at The A to Z Show on The A to Z Show, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can also find me on all the Let Me Explain links as well, from Letterboxd to the YouTube channel, or you can find me here every week on the Intercut Podcast.
You can listen to every episode of the Intercut Podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, or your favorite podcatcher, I like Overcast. And then make sure you're subscribed not just to the audio podcast, but to the video feed on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/IntercutPod, where you can catch our bright, smiling faces as we break down the latest in entertainment. Find new episodes of Intercut every Friday, as well as these Let Us Explains. We drop them sporadically, periodically, whatever Lee word you want to use there. Please leave us a comment, like the video, considering heading over to iTunes to give us a 5-star review. And like our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages, all of them are at IntercutPod to get updates throughout the week from me, from Art, from all the people that we feature on the Intercut program. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, you can play with Julian at recess.